remember there's a stack of 4 functions for each of these types, right? Okay, the first one has to be extroverted if it's an extroverted type, or introverted if it's an introverted type, right? So we can see here, these are 4 extroverted types. So whatever the first function is going to be, they're all going to be extroverted, right? And then the second one has to be the opposite of the first in terms of its orientation. So if the first one's introverted, the second one's extroverted. If the first one's extroverted, the second one's introverted, right? So in this case, it's I for all 4, okay? Because the first function is extroverted, right? The third one's going to be the exact opposite of the second one. So in this case, we know whatever it's going to be is going to be extroverted. And the last one has to be the exact opposite of the first one, okay? So whatever the first one is, this has to be the opposite. So this has to be introverted, right? Because the first one's extroverted. So since it's an extroverted type, right, the orientation is going to go extroverted, introverted, extroverted, introverted. If it was an introverted type, it would be introverted, extroverted, introverted, extroverted, right? You with me so far? That makes sense? Okay. So now we just have to figure out, is it extroverted feeling? Is it extroverted thinking, extroverted intuition, extroverted sensing, right? That's the available functions. We know, let's focus on the first one here, the ENTP, okay? That they have a preference for intuition over sensing, right? Because N is in the letters instead of S. And we know that they have a preference for thinking over feeling, okay? Because T is in the letters instead of F, okay? So in these first 2, there has to be intuition, there has to be N, and there has to be thinking, okay? Okay, because both thinking has to come before feeling and intuition has to come before sensing, okay? So in these first 2 is going to be N and T, okay? Which way around is it? Is it N and then T, or is it T and then N? Okay, you with me so far? So the way that we decide that is by looking at the last letter, okay? If they're a perceiving type, if it's P, okay, then it's the perceiving function that's extroverted, okay, which is intuition or sensing, right? If they're a judging type, if it's J, then it's the judging function, thinking versus feeling. That's the one that's extroverted, okay? So in this case, they're a perceiving type, they're P, okay, which means the perceiving function, intuition or sensing, has to be the one that's extroverted, okay? Now it's an intuitive type, okay? And we know that the first function is going to be extroverted, okay? So we know, therefore, that the first function is N, okay? We know that they have preference for thinking over feeling, so the second one has to be T. Everyone understand so far? You with me? Okay, I'll give you a chance to do the next ones to make sure, okay? The third one's the exact opposite of the second one, okay? What's the opposite of introverted thinking? Extroverted feeling, okay? Feeling's the opposite of thinking. And the last one's the very opposite of the first one, okay? So what's the very opposite of intuition? It's sensing, okay? Okay, so you tell me then for the ENFP, okay, what's the first function? N, yeah, why?
It's the same as the first one. It's a perceiving. So
yeah, it's a perceiving type, okay? So the perceiving function has to be extroverted, okay? And what's the second function? F, right? Why? Because they're a feeling type, right? What's the third one? T, yeah, why? Yeah, because it's the opposite of the second one, yeah. And then the last one? 7, S, yeah, because it's the opposite of the first one, right? Okay. First function for ENTJ? T, right, because they're a judging type, right? So it's the judging function that's extroverted. Second function? N, yeah. Third one, S, right, because it's the opposite of the second. Last one, F, right, because it's the opposite of the first one. Right. I think you've got it now, right? So what's the first one here? F, right, because they're an F type and they're a judging type. Second one? N, yep, because they're an intuitive type. Third one? S, because it's the opposite of N. Yeah, and then last one? T, right.